Okay. Now, when I said I won't be able to finish the whole book, I'll definitely be able to finish the Four Noble Truths. So no problem. Except for the very end, there are these kind of little debates. But let's see how far we get. I mean, you can still read the debates, and I think it's to some degree self-explanatory. Okay. But to me, it's more important actually to have all your questions answered. So, of course, some people have come here, some people I talked to in private and so forth. But to address all this, because that's more important. It's also part of the digesting. So, like digesting this material. I was just thinking, maybe I should stress this more about how physical exercising, like yoga, is very similar to learning this. It's a bit like anything we do in life. Like we need to develop any physical movement. We need to develop the muscles, the what do you call it? The tendon. What do you call it? The tendons, the nerves and so forth. All that needs to slowly become more flexible, and then you can take it from there. Our mind is just like that. Initially, we take one part. There's one thing that we deal with, and then when that feels that makes sense, we really shoot through it, we go to something else, and we go to something else. So it's a step-by-step process, which does take time, but, there's no deadline. It's like going to the gym, yeah. It's like, yeah, you don't do like 20 kilos right away and go, oh, I mean, you're just going to harm yourself, you're going to hurt yourself. So likewise, take it slowly. And there's sometimes a sense of urgency described in Buddhism, but that is only once you have great compassion and you just can't bear seeing other people suffering. So then you want to very quickly reach your goal. But we're not there yet. Let's be realistic. It's not like other people's sufferings are, our own suffering is not really a great concern to us, right? I mean, we're not even that worried about our own suffering that we feel like, I need to get out of this here as quick as possible. So as long as we don't have that, let's take it slowly, yeah, and take a step at a time. But unfortunately, this course is kind of the opposite of like, let's go through everything. But let's go through everything. It gives you like a map, It's like then you can always go later back and you understand how it connects to some degree. So that may be helpful. All right. But anyway, having discussed some of the aspects of karma, with in particular the 4 characteristics, which if you read again, I think they're pretty clear. It's not difficult to understand them. And then there are the 4 factors that make an action more powerful. And now what is discussed according to the order also in the Lamrim are the 3 karmic results. So how does a karma result in something? What can it result in? Or what can be the effect of a karma? So first we talk about fruitional results. Fruitional results refer to certain rebirth. So you have specific causes that can result in a particular rebirth. Okay, so if there really are past and future lives, then if we are reborn in the next life, it's not random. There's no coincidence. We have created the causes for a particular rebirth. Many of them. We have created many causes, many fruitional results, and at the time of death, depending on how we die, a certain karma is ripened. So there's so many different karmas and so many different ones can ripen, but of course we would be intent on a positive karma ripening, being reborn in a state that offers certain opportunities and enables us to continue to transform and enhance our mind. Now for that, it is helpful, it is important to have a peaceful kind of death. So if at all we have any control, we need to prepare for death. The earlier we prepare, the better. To take into consideration the possibility that we may die tomorrow. We may die any time. So it's good to always be prepared. Because if we're always prepared, then even if we die tomorrow, it's like, okay, it's going to happen one day. So, okay, it happens to be today, but I'm ready. So then there's no worry that arises, no regret, no anger, and so forth. So that's good to have a very peaceful mind. Therefore, in Buddhism, you're supposed to reflect upon your own death on a daily basis. And that way, you're pretty much prepared. But of course, being peaceful at the time of death, a way in which we can not be 100% sure that we're peaceful at the time of death, but which makes the likelihood of being peaceful of death much greater, is to live a peaceful life. So to live a moral life, to engage in actions that are not harmful, instead trying to benefit others to the best of our ability, and not to overdo it, such that we're totally exhausted and need to take a holiday for a month because we've overdone it. No, we need to give what we can give, not to exhaust ourselves too much, but to always try our very best to be of greatest benefit to as many people as possible. With that attitude, we are very likely to live, to have a peaceful life and to die a peaceful death. And then at the time of death, the karmic imprint that takes us to our next life will ripen, and the more peaceful we are, the more likely it is that a positive karma will ripen. Okay? All right. So anyway, and that leads to a fruitional result. A fruitional result is described as a result that is, it's either a positive or a negative karma that is responsible for a fruitional result. It's either positive or negative. So neutral karma is not strong enough to determine a future lifetime. It's only positive or negative. And then also, once it's ripened, until the end, you experience it. In other words, it's not like once you're human, you can change it and become something else. Yeah, so fruitional karma cannot be changed, really. Once it's ripened, there's not much you can do about it until you die. So you're born as a human or as an animal and so forth. For as long as you live, that'll be your existence. So it's called fruitional. It implies all this, that it cannot be changed once it's. And there also sometimes the Tibetans talk about when you get sick. There's certain karma that cannot be, that once you've experienced that karma, there's no other karma that can overpower that karma. For example, there's certain karma when you get sick, another karma to get better can be activated, and then, you're sick for a week, but you get better. Most of the time that's true. But sometimes in Tibetan, you describe it, you say like, this is a fruitional result. When there's a specific condition, there's nothing you can do about it. You just need to bear it until it's over. So there's certain sicknesses. I'm thinking of my dad right now. My dad had a stroke. I spoke about it before. So for 12 years now, there is no improvement. Slight improvement, but very little. So he will never speak again. He will never move again. In this lifetime, no. For this lifetime, it's a fruitional result. And he knows that, except he doesn't know it. He doesn't call it that. He doesn't speak about karma. He doesn't know this idea, but he's accepted that there's no change. And for me, this is a good example of a fruitional result. As long as he lives, this condition will not get better because the brain is damaged. Okay? So these are examples of fruitional results. So fruitional results here specifically actually mean just a rebirth. Here in this context, though the word can be used in the way I just described it, when there's a karma that you have to experience it until the karma is exhausted, that is sometimes called a fruitional result, but here it means a specific rebirth. Okay, so when you look at this list here, there's a list of different possibilities of rebirth. Very difficult for us to believe. Why difficult? Because we cannot see it. Okay, we can see animals, no problem to believe in the rebirth of animals. That's easier to believe in. Rebirth as humans, of all the different rebirth, that's easiest to accept because we just cannot imagine to be a dog. But that's just because we can't imagine it. Doesn't mean it's impossible. From a Buddhist point of view, just because to us it doesn't make sense, doesn't mean it's impossible. And with regard to the other states of existence, well, there's no way we can prove it, but there's said to be beings who perceive other beings. And I mean, through cross cultures, through different cultures, there are explanations of spirit kind of beings. There's explanation of celestial beings, angels, and what have you. Well, in Buddhism, they're called something different, but this similar explanation is given. So, I mean, it's interesting that you find those across cultures without these cultures communicating. So it seems to imply that some people actually have perceived these beings, right? So again, just because we don't see something, I mean, we don't see radio waves, but we very much believe in their existence because someone told us they exist. That's basically it. And it can be proven, but you've never really done the proof. So likewise here, the Buddha has spoken about it, other masters have spoken about it. There's no reason for them to lie to us. We assume that they actually perceive this directly, and the idea is that we ourselves can see this one day ourselves. But again, it should be taken with skepticism, as it's always healthy to be skeptical about this, but to also not totally dismiss it, saying, well, just because it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, science hasn't proven it yet. Well, if we just go according to what science has proven at a certain point, well, 50 years ago, science hasn't proven a lot of things. Does that mean it doesn't exist? There are things that science is yet to prove. Just because they haven't proven it yet, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist right now. Maybe in the future, science can prove the existence of other states of beings. I mean, I believe scientifically it can be proven, of course, except we don't know how. Right? We don't know how. And science is limited. Why? Because a scientist is limited. Why? Because a scientist only has 5 senses. So you cannot perceive anything more. How can you prove something if there's no sense that can can perceive it? So we have this idea about science being totally objective. But nowadays, scientists themselves say, it's impossible. How can you be really objective? So there was this view like years ago that science is like a bird. You fly over everything and you see it objectively. Scientists no longer talk about this. I mean, it's an objective perception. How can you be a subjective perception? How can you be objective about something? So the point is, as long as we are limited, what we perceive is limited. And we have measures to access things through reasoning that previously, like radio waves and radioactive waves. Okay, we can now, radioactivity and so forth, we can't see it, but we can prove its existence. So slowly, I believe, other states of existence can be proven. Right? I'm sure there are scientific measures, but they haven't been found yet. Anyway, but the point is that to be open to these possibilities, there's a 50% chance they exist, right? So with this in mind, the Buddha has described 3 realms of existence. One is called the desire realm, one is called the form realm, and one is called the formless realm. And then the desire realm, that is the state of existence we are in right now, which is very much governed by desire. Right? I mean, desire. Yeah, our whole life is very much controlled by desire. So not surprising, it's called desire realm. So then within the desire realm, you have got the hell realm. That's not a favorite of anyone, but again, there's a specific way of thinking about it. Because of course, when we say hell or human and animal realm, we believe in some kind of objective realm. But from Buddha's point of view, they don't exist anyway. What is reality? There's my reality and everyone's reality, but there's no other reality other than that. So really, a hellish experience is a subjective experience. So being reborn in a realm such as a hell realm is just a subjective experience as a result of negative actions accumulated that one is trapped in. And of course, there's explanations of hell on earth. Beings who due to psychological problems, they experience the most hellish experiences. To them, it's real. I mean, the suffering is real. Though the voices that they perceive, I mean, how do I know they don't really hear these voices? How do I know they're not there, these voices? Right? I mean, what is sound anyway? Sound is not really out there. Sound is what my brain interprets to be there. And we have a similar body, and therefore we perceive sound in a similar way. In the end, I don't actually know whether your sound sounds the same as mine. I have no idea. I don't know whether your green is my yellow, and we just both call it yellow. I don't know. Or we both call it green. So we just assume everyone else sees the same, but we don't know. And so in that case, thinking along those lines, that everything is totally subjective. What you perceive, I have no idea of. I can only guess. Then it makes sense that there are hellish experiences, there are great blissful experiences, depending on the actions that ripen or the karmic imprints ripening at a certain point in time. So therefore, there are hellish experiences, there are states where terrible things happen, there are states where wonderful things happen, celestial realms, and then there's the human realm, where it's kind of a mixture between some happiness, some suffering. Okay? So anyway, we described in the desire realm, there's a hell realm where there's incredible suffering, incredible physical suffering in particular. Then there's the preta realm where there's still a certain degree of physical suffering, hunger, thirst, etc. Then the animal realm, which is characterized basically by being eaten or eating something else or being eaten. Like basically, you can talk about the sufferings of each realm. So in the hell realm, it's like being burned alive, like the suffering. What's the worst kind of physical suffering we can think of? Being burned alive. So that kind of suffering, whether it's exactly that, we don't know. Usually it's depicted that way, but it's described as the worst kind of physical suffering. You experience that. And I once heard about, I don't know, it sounds really horrible, but okay, I did hear about it. I was on the BBC once about a child who had a disease of the nerves, and the sensation that child had was of being burned alive. And it was terrible, but it was that kind of idea that for this child it was real. There was no fire, but still it was real. So that would be like a hellish experience. And then there's the preta realm, where there's an incredible experience of hunger and thirst. The animal realm, if we look around at the animal realm, it is characterized by great fear. There's a lot of fear. I mean, birds, they never sit still. Always looking around. I mean, we have a very romantic idea of birds, but I don't know how romantic it is to be a bird. I like the flying part, but I don't think they go like, oh, I love flying. I think it's like, is anyone behind me? Is there something to eat? I guess it's really like that. Is there food? Oh, I'm getting cold. There's something behind me. What is there? It's like they're all kind of nervous the whole time, always looking around. So I don't think it's that romantic actually being an animal. I mean, even if I was a person's dog, I mean, I have no control over the fridge. I mean, I find that very frustrating. Right? No control. I mean, this is terrible. You're like under the whim of a person that decide to feed you or not. So it's very difficult to be an animal, actually. And then there's said to be the celestial realm. I mean, yeah, I can imagine that to some degree. Incredible sense pleasures. All your senses, they always get what they want. There's an incredible sense of delight and joy and so forth. Why not? We experience that sometimes as humans. So it's just a more extensive version of that. And even in this human realm, we encounter beings who have an incredible happiness, who enjoy life, no worry. For some time, there's a kind of a celestial existence. It doesn't always last, but it exists. And then there's the human realm, ordinary human, So, human realm, actually, in this context, I said a little bit here about the human realm, that the human realm, even though it's not the highest realm, so within the desire realm, form and formless realms are basically states of existence where you must have great meditative concentration. That due to the concentrated states, you are born in a state which is much subtler, where there are less distractions and your mind is very focused. Okay, that's kind of different. But ordinarily, most beings are born in what's called the desire realm, not in the form or formless realm. So I don't need to say much about the form or formless realm, yeah?
And it is possible, like the Buddha, right, to get into nirvana or find nirvana from the desire realm. It doesn't mean like you have to go to a pure land, this or another one.
No. You don't, in order to become a Buddha, you can be just an ordinary human being. That's actually said to be the best state. There's again a kind of contradiction. There seems to be a contradiction. The human birth is not seen as the highest. It's not seen as the highest realm because of the amount of suffering. But spiritually, it's still the most conducive. So there seems to be a contradiction here, but really there isn't. A higher realm, the way one classifies something into a higher realm is by the amount of suffering that is experienced. So the less the suffering, or the less the potential for suffering to arise, the higher the realm is regarded. But spiritually, it is better to be a human being because there's a healthy amount of suffering. So it's good to have a certain amount of suffering. Like I said, like one of the earlier days that I mentioned that some of the problems, for example, that people face here in Israel can have great benefits to make people more aware, more realistic, more mature. So sometimes living in an environment where everything is happy-go-lucky and nothing goes wrong can stop a person from being more mature and being very spoiled. So that's a problem. So therefore, in the celestial realms, they don't want to practice the Dharma. The celestial beings are not interested in transforming their mind. They just enjoy, happy-go-lucky, everything is going well. Why would they practice Dharma? So it's oftentimes experiencing some problems and difficulties. That's when one is more realistic and actually engages in practice. And I sometimes meet people who, after something terrible happened to them, turn towards religious practice, right? Because then you see what life is really like. Okay? I mean, we seek happiness in a state where there is no happiness. We still look for lasting happiness. Right? We look for lasting happiness in this state, and as long as nothing happens, we're like, okay, life is wonderful, I'm so happy, and so forth. And then when something terrible happens, suddenly, oh, life is different. And then they look around, and possibly a sense of renunciation grows. And that's good. A sense of, maybe the kind of happiness I'm looking for cannot be found within this realm. So then they start looking inwards. Yeah. So human birth is like that for that exact reason, because there's a healthy amount of suffering. So suffering can be good. Anyway, so just that this is not contradictory, that although the human realm is not considered the highest, it's still said to be the best realm in order to become enlightened. Right? Okay.
And why human and not the form or formless realm?
Form and formless realms, you're too distracted just being blissed out in these states of, having these concentrated states. It's like a celestial realm. The form and formless realms are like where you experience very little problem, you're in concentrated kind of states, and the less problems you experience, the less the drive to actually overcome the problems. So it's said to be better to be in the human realm. Yeah? Okay. Now, then there are what are called the causally concordant results. I then made a mistake. On page 83, I repeated those two again, a different version. I forgot to delete it. So anyway, I crossed it out here on page 83. I just crossed this out. Again, when I edit this, when I'm going to edit this and send it out to people, it'll be gone. Anyway, so they're causally, this is on page 83. It says again, causally concordant. It has the same division again, but this is extra. So causally concordant results. Besides the fruitional results, there are causally concordant results, which means causally concordant just means a result that is similar to the cause. It's a result that is similar to the cause. So there is a result that is similar to the cause with regard to the experience and with regard to one's behavior. So it's quite easy, actually. If I engage in killing, I kill someone. And I usually use the example of killing because that's the first of the non-virtues. I could take stealing or, a positive action. So if I am generous with others, then someone will be generous back to me. That's the result of an action of generosity, roughly speaking. So if I shorten someone's life with the intention to kill them, then as a result of that, my life may be shortened. That's a causally concordant experiential result. So an experience that is similar to the result. Having done something to myself that I've done to someone else, whether positive or negative. And then there are causally concordant behavioral results. Because if I engage in, let's say, the act of killing, I make a habit out of it. So I kill 1 time and 2 times and 3 times, and I start enjoying it. Or I practice generosity 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, and I enjoy it. I start enjoying it. I make a habit of it. So that results in later on being reborn, possibly with the tendency to be generous, or in my case, to steal. I think I must have at some point in the past been a thief. In a previous life, I probably stole, and when I was born, I had a tendency to do the same thing. That is a causally concordant behavioral result, right? And then a causally concordant, let's say if someone, since they were little, they never lacked the most basic needs, they would always be given things, well then it's a causally concordant experiential result, which is a result of generosity. Yeah. So if as a kid you received a lot of things, or even now you do, then that's a result of, that's similar to the cause in the sense you have a similar experience. So that's also a way in which a karma can ripen. So it can ripen by way of being reborn in a certain place, but it can also ripen by way of having certain experiences in this lifetime as a result of a past action. Either experiences that are similar to what we've done to someone else, or a certain behavior which reflects the behavior that we've done before. And then there are also environmental results. That in dependence on an action, we are born in a certain environment, or we live in a certain environment. We find ourselves in a certain environment. So, for example, it is said that as a result of killing, for example, you may be born in an environment where it is difficult to stay alive, where you lack the basic needs. Maybe you're born in a country where food is very scarce, where things don't grow, where there are a lot of natural calamities and so forth. It's difficult to. This is just a very general explanation, and the details are much more. There much more detail to it, but it can be that as a result of an action or as a result of generosity, one is born in a place where one does not face any problems with regard to getting the most basic things that one needs, clothing and food and so forth. So this would just be an example. So the environment one is reborn in, right? If one is reborn, one may be reborn in a place, for example, as a result of lying a lot, deceiving others. One may be reborn in a country where it's very difficult to make contact with other people, where it's harder to make friends, where people don't really communicate with each other that much. As a result, on the other hand, of being very social and being trustworthy, one may be reborn in an environment where people are very communal and trust each other and so forth. So these are just kind of examples, general examples, but it gives us a sense that an action can result in a certain behavior, a certain experience, a certain rebirth, and a certain environment. Okay? And that changes all the time. Because karma is not like we're born with one one bag of just solid karma and that's it. No, our experiences on each day are different. Each day different karmas ripen, we have different experiences, we find ourselves in different environments. Every day it's slightly different. So we're just talking about one specific karma that ripens at one time, but it may just take 2 minutes for it to ripen, and that's it, and a new karma ripens. One karma can ripen many, many times in a similar experience. Another karma only ripens once. So it's a very, very complicated kind of idea, but nonetheless to simplify, to understand it a little better and act accordingly, that's why you get this explanation here. It's much more complicated than this. Okay. Now this is, in general, these are kind of some of the more commonly given explanation with regard to karma. And then there are lastly certain classifications of karma. And again, they're just overlapping. A lot of what I've said already comes up again, just looking at it from a slightly different angle. So karma of body, speech, and mind. In a way, we've already discussed that. So this is, again, just spelling it out, that there's physical karma, karma of the body, karma of the speech, karma of the mind. Karma of the mind, of course, being most important because it makes karma of the speech or karma of the body into what it is. Right? It's really the motivation that's most important, but that doesn't mean that physical actions do not nonetheless hold are karmic in a way. There's always a difference in me wanting to beat someone up and actually beat someone up, right? I can imagine I beat someone up, but the karma of beating someone up is only accumulated if you actually, or is only actually completed if you do beat someone up. So the intention is already pretty bad, but it's worse to actually then do the action, right? In the case of beating someone up. Then there's virtuous, non-virtuous, and neutral karma, all right? Again, this is very self-explanatory, just to mention it again. So, virtuous karma refers to volitional actions of body, speech, or mind that have the potential to produce positive results. Why do I say they have the potential? Why do I not say virtuous karma refers to volitional actions of body, speech, and mind that produce positive results? Why am I not saying that? Because they don't necessarily do so. They have the potential, but they can be destroyed. A positive action can be destroyed. Okay. Likewise with negative actions. They can be purified. So they have the potential to lead to negative results, but they don't necessarily have to. Then there's what's called projecting and completing karma. I've already spoken about it to some degree. I've just not used those names. So there is karma that is so strong, it can throw us into a specific existence. So when we are reborn in our next life, I've spoken about a fruitional result, being reborn in a specific state, human or animal and so forth. So if there really is a future life, upon the completion of this lifetime, we'll be born somewhere else. And it's a specific projecting karma that is responsible for where we're reborn. So that projecting karma is an action, and we don't know when we accumulate an action now, is it a projecting karma or not? We can't tell. We don't know because, it's like we don't know what it results in, basically. But we know that there are projecting karmas in general, and it's said that any very powerful positive action has a powerful, strong one, a heavy one, that can serve as a projecting karma, or a powerful negative one that can serve as a projecting karma. So basically, it is responsible, it propels us into a future lifetime.
Especially in the time of death?
Pardon?
Especially in the time of death?
Yes, at the time of death, that's when it ripens. Why does it ripen? Why does it ripen? We make it ripen. Why? Because, as I said later, the craving for existence. It's like, I don't want to get out of existence. Oh, that thought. Because we want to exist, there's a craving for existence, and we can't help it. We naturally have it. Because of our craving or attachment towards the I, we crave we're not only attached to the I, we're attached to the existence of the I. So therefore, at the time of death, when there's a sense we're going out of existence, we lose our body and mind separate, and we're aware of that process. It's like, no, I want to exist. And, thank you very much, projecting karma is being ripened, right? So it starts actualized. So we continue, our wish is fulfilled. We get what we wish for. That's the power of the mind. Pardon?
Isn't there a limbo state? Is it resurrected?
There's an intermediate state, yes, an intermediate state. But the intermediate state, it's called pardo. The result of the intermediate state is the result of the karma that ripens at the time of death. So if you are reborn as a human being again, you experience an intermediate state of a human being, which is the result of the karma that is activated at the time of your death. And then afterwards, you're reborn as a human being. So it's that once the karma is activated, the karma activates an intermediate state as a human and an actual human rebirth. And if I have the karma to be reborn as an animal, for example, then when I die, my projecting karma causes me to be reborn in the intermediate state of an animal, like it's called an animal intermediate state, and thereafter to be reborn as an animal. So it's the same karma, even though there is this intermediate state, but it's still caused by the karma at the time of death in this lifetime. Okay? All right.
Completing is the same as projecting?
No. We'll come to this. So in some cases, there's one single projecting karma that can lead to one rebirth. The very single powerful projecting karma can also project me many, many times, 3 or 4 times, in a human existence, animal or preta existence. It's possible, yes. One karma. But it has to still ripen at each time, and depending on the way we die. If it's a positive karma, we don't need to worry about it. And then depending on our death at each time, it may actually not project us. It can potentially, but it doesn't have to ripen depending on the time of death. Yeah.
When Tara said she's going to reach enlightenment in a female body.
Yes.
That's a projecting karma, right?
When Tara said that she's gonna, okay, we're talking about, like, when we talk about beings who say, I will always be reborn in a female body, we're talking about people who have control over their rebirth. Because even before you become a Buddha, you can learn to control where you're reborn. Actually, to tell you the truth, you can also already control things right now. Not really control, but you can have some influence. Making prayers is said to be a very effective method, because a prayer is not so much directed towards an outer entity. It's actually more setting your mind in that direction. The power of prayer is such that you make a prayer towards an external entity, possibly to receive their blessing and so forth, or their assistance, but it also sets your mind in that direction. So the power of prayer is such that it leads your mind, it helps. Unless you've created the karma, of course, then prayer is useless. But if you've created the karma, and we're very likely to have created a lot of positive karma in the same way as a lot of negative karma. So we have also accumulated positive karma. And by praying, we connect this aspiration with the positive karma, and therefore we can actually the prayer can lead to the ripening of that positive karma. It's just the power of the mind. So prayer is very effective, but effective in a different way than we're usually taught. It's not like an external force just takes care of things and we just need to lean back and not do anything. No, it is actually, we have to create the cause. We have to create the cause. So if you want to make money, for example, to just give a bizarre example, I'm not saying you do, but like a mundane example, making prayer helps, but practicing generosity is important, right? So just praying, and if there's no karma to be wealthy, well, then it's not going to work. So to practice generosity and at the same time to make prayers will eventually get you to have enough money, right? But the problem is it may not happen in this lifetime. You may have to wait until the next. But, anyway. But honestly, something about generosity I've observed my whole life. A lot of people who are naturally generous, they never lack anything. There's some people, like, they always give, they can't help it. They like don't have much money left, but they're like, I have one classmate, he always had very little money. But he always gave. He had 50 rupees, he gave 30. He always gave, he gave. Now, he's got this Chinese sponsor who gives him thousands of dollars. But he still gives it away. He's in Tibet now. He's got this crazy amount of money. He keeps calling me, do you need money? I can send you thousands of dollars. I'm like, no, give it to the monastery. So he gives it to all sorts of people, like he gives it to all sorts of places. So he has so much money now. And I believe because he was so generous at all times. Yeah. And I know some other people, I know some nuns, like Western nuns, they just give all the time. And their money runs out and someone comes along and gives them $100. Right? They never lack anything. So there really is something. And then other people who are like, and then they're always like complaining about money. I don't know whether they really have a money problem or whether they never feel they have enough. I don't know what it is because I can't look into their bank accounts and their purses. But there's these tendencies of people who are not, really you can see it. People who are very generous at all times. I mean, maybe it doesn't come right away, but eventually there'll be money coming. So for me, this is a very good, I believe in the working of karma when I see generous people. Naturally generous people who always give and never seem to lack. I don't know, you may have examples of those people. And of course, there are definitely cases where it's not like that. With my classmate, initially he didn't have any money. But he still always gave. And now it's like he doesn't know what to do with the money. And he still keeps giving it. This incredible work.
When he didn't have the money, he still probably felt that he didn't lack anything.
No, he felt fine. He never felt like, he had little money. Well, he felt just as comfortable to be in a simple restaurant and so forth. But yeah, so it could have been a problem if he felt like, I didn't have anything. He wouldn't practice generosity, and I don't think he would have, have the generosity, have the resources he has now. Anyway, never mind. It's something to investigate. All right, and then projecting karma can be a single powerful karma, can produce many causes. It can also be that many small karmas can serve as one projecting karma. That's also possible. So you have this explained in Asanga's Abhidharma Samuccaya, or Compendium of Knowledge. I cited this here on page 88. Anyway, so this is projecting karma, and then you have completing karma. Completing karma is the opposite of projecting karma, in the sense that projecting karma projects you in a certain rebirth. Completing karma completes the experiences. So projecting karma is sometimes described as like the outlines of a picture, and completing karma is like filling in the details, right? Coloring, the shades, and so forth. So basically, what was responsible for us to be reborn as a human being was a particular projecting karma. Okay? When did that ripen? At the end of our last lives. End of story. Did any other projecting karma ripen in this lifetime? No. Impossible. It ripened the last time while we were dying, and it will ripen again at the time of our death. Another one will ripen. That's it. Completing karma ripens all the time, in each moment, all the time. The fact we look the way we do, the fact we're born in a certain family and so forth, the fact that the genetic material in our body manifests in this way and not in another way. It's very interesting for me when scientists speak about, we don't know why these stem cells grow into this and grow into that. I'm always thinking, yeah, it's just the karma of the person, that certain stem cell. It's the karmic force. I don't know, maybe that's just naive to think along those lines. But also like identical twins. They're actually not identical. Even when they're born, they're not identical. So, I mean, of course, scientists will then say, well, maybe one lay on this side of the womb and that side, and that was the reason. But why do they lie on this side of the room? Why is one there and the other one lies on that side? Why does one that experience and the other another experience? That is karma. So the idea of genes and DNA there's no contradiction to karma. Still, the genetic material is responsible for a lot of the experiences we have. But why did we get that genetic material and not something else? Right? There were 5 million possibilities. I just saw a documentary. I saw a documentary that when the fertilized egg, there's 5 million different semens. So 5 different million semens holding different combinations of the DNA of the father, and then 5 million plus 1, which is the fertilized egg, and it's 1 that makes it. So why? That's the karma of the being who is reborn in that egg, right? It's not coincidence, but still having that particular combination of the genetic material is responsible for that being to then be who they are. That's the completing karma. The fact that they're born as a human, that's a projecting karma. The fact that they're born with this DNA, it's a particular completing karma. The fact that their parents are such and such is a different kind of completing karma. The fact that the mother does this, and the being that the experiences in the womb are such and such, depending on the mother, that's again a different completing karma. So in each moment, different completing karma ripens, and new one is produced, so no worry about running out. Right? Okay. And so this is how life, our experiences are very much determined by our actions. But that's the beauty in it. Because there's so much we can do. Right? There's so much we can do. It's in my hand. So there's this very famous saying, and it totally expresses it. If I want to know what I've done in the past, I look at my life right now. My body, my life right now. If I want to know what my situation will be in the future, I look at my mind right now. Right? I want to know what I did in the past, I look at my situation now. I want to know what my future situation will be, I look at my mind right now. Right? It's beautiful. So much freedom. So much freedom in there. It's up to me. I want to be happy? Up to me. I want to suffer? I can do that. I can create that suffering. No problem. Right? Okay. Anyway, so that's completing karma. It just completes everything. So sometimes the projecting karma can be positive, but negative completing karma manifests. That's possible. Or the projecting karma is negative, but a lot of positive things happen. So it's a combination of those. All right. Okay. So then, if you look at then on page 90. Oh, okay, one more thing about the projecting karma I didn't mention. So, yeah, this is on page 90. So, projecting karma also is responsible for the maximum lifespan. Every projecting karma comes with a maximum lifespan. So, if you're projecting karma, means you're going to live up till the age of 90. You live until the age of 90 and not a day longer. Right? And then you just fall over and you're dead. I mean, this is what happens sometimes. It's interesting. My grandfather died like that. He laid down after lunch and died. He was dead. He was fit. He had no disease, no problem. Nothing happened. He ate his lunch. He had a nap, and he never woke up from his nap. I think he had a hemorrhage in the brain. So I'm always reminded of that, how he died. And I'm thinking, when I started just learning Buddhism, oh, that could be his lifespan was exhausted. Maybe not, I don't know, but it could be a cause for that his maximum lifespan was exhausted. But, pardon? That's true. It could also be that, but I'm saying that's a possibility.